Hey everyone, it's Ripper here, and I have Ann McQueen on the screen. No, she's not mean. I'm not a very good poet. Anyway, I'm really excited to have Ann here because Ann worked with Don Lewis for many, many, many years, and of all the people that I want to talk to, she's the one that I want to talk to. So, Ann, welcome. Thank you for coming here. Um, people people want to hear from you, and I know that you haven't really spoken up about a lot of this stuff. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm sorry for what happened to your, I guess it's your boss of 18 years. Is that how long you worked for Don?
It was right at 18 years, and
Okay.
he was more my friend than he was my boss.
Right. So I'm sorry that for what happened to him, and hopefully we can figure out what it was that happened and close close the story and open up a new one and get some closure for you, his family, all of his friends. So thank you for coming here. Now, do you still live in Florida?
I do.
Okay. Are you um, are you practicing social distancing?
We are. We've been. I think today is 10 days of our lockdown.
Okay. Well, that's good. All right. So I gotta ask you a question. I posted a video a couple of days ago, and I had a document that was written to you that was notarized by an attorney. Did you see that video by chance?
I did.
Okay. Um, can we talk about that document? Because when I watched the documentary, when I finished watching it, I thought, well, it seems like Anne had done a lot of shady things, and maybe Carol was trying to protect the assets that Don had. And then, I mean, that was my initial thought. But then as I started reading and researching stuff, I kind of thought, okay, maybe that wasn't true. But then I got a hold of that document and I read it and I thought, oh, wow. So can you tell me a little bit about that document?
Well, um, after almost I think maybe it was a little over a year of going back and forth with Carol and with the conservatorship and back and forth between attorneys' offices and my attorney and her attorney, and we it got to a point where both his family and I we were wore out, both physically, mentally, financially at that point too. Um, and so when his girls had no other choice but to settle with her and say, okay, well, let's just get this done and over with. I really I didn't have any standing. I was a glorified assistant. I wasn't related by blood or marriage. So um, there was a meeting in Carol's office or Carol's attorney's office, and they made me an offer, and I said no. Um, and Carol was in one room. And you know how they do, like whenever you do oh, horse was like
Mediation?
mediation.
Uh huh.
There's your word. They had Carol in one room and me in another room, and the attorneys were going back and forth, and her attorney, and I can't remember what his Eddie, I think was his name. He came in. He said, Carol wants to know what you want, and I said, I want an apology. Above all else, I want an apology. And he went and told her, and she came back. Well, what do you want her to say? And I said, I want her to tell the truth. I didn't put any words in her mouth. I mean, that's
Right.
exactly what I said. Is I want her to tell her truth. I want her to tell the truth. And I can't remember because I haven't seen that document in a very, very, very long time. Um, I've seen images of it, I guess, whenever you posted it, but
Right.
I even right now I don't remember. I think part of it was typed and Carol signed it, and it was notarized. And
Right.
at
It,
that time, I kind of thought, okay, wow, after all this, after darn near losing my mind of anxiety and crying all the time and being worried all the time. At least I knew then my name was clear.
right.
Um, and I thought it was over with. Um, Apparently not.
Were you surprised? Like in my video, I showed a Facebook post from, I think it was 2014 or 2015. I mean, it was 5 or 6 years ago, where she made a post where she said that you had embezzled like $600,000 or something to that effect. So this would almost be 20 years after she had written this letter of apology. Were you surprised to see that? That
I
that's
was I was extremely surprised because over the past 20 years, I've made it my rule that I stay on my side of town, and I don't go over her side of town. I don't badmouth her. I just I thought it was over. I thought it was over and done with.
right,
Um, I can't. I don't understand why she continued to do it the way that she did it. I The only thing as far as back in 2014, the only thing that I can think of is that she was drawing sympathy from her supporters and the people that donate to her. You have a sad story,
mm,
people feel sorry for you, and of course, there's going to be more donations flying in. As far as what as far as the new rush of her slurs and her slanders, I guess it comes from the fact that there were people that were willing to finally say something. Um, I'm appalled at the fact that she has went so far as to not only smear my name in a new renewed effort, but there's other good people out there that all they did was speak up. They
right.
spoke their mind, and she has went out of her way to defame. And well, you've read the things that she said. I mean,
I have.
they're appalling. I just can't imagine how I can't imagine the spitefulness of it, especially whenever you've got at least somebody that's set back for 21, 22 years, and I've not said anything. And none of these other people has said anything.
Right, because when, like, the people that I work with in this stuff, they've uncovered a lot of information. I mean, stuff that's just like, I have a newspaper article on the screen here that I want to read to you in a little bit, but they've uncovered a lot of stuff, and I really couldn't find anything on you. I mean, there just wasn't anything out there. I was like, is like, where's she at? Is she in hiding? But you're just right there. You've just been quiet. Um,
I don't enjoy this publicity.
uh,
Especially when you consider the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And anybody that's watched it knows what I'm talking about. So
right, right,
I don't enjoy being associated with that at all.
right. So, all right. So you haven't you haven't talked about all this stuff. You've been pretty quiet about it. I put a video out that showed some things that were said about you. There's a document where Carol apologizes and said that her accusations were unfounded. Um, I mean, well, why do this interview? I mean, like, why come on here and talk to me? Because I mean, you don't want to be in the spotlight. You don't want to talk about stuff, which I totally understand. And of course, I told you that I had some questions for you because I think, which I'll explain to you, but I think I have some really important information to share with you today. But why come out like right now and start talking about all this?
The truth. Um, Several nights ago, before I joined your group and before I started answering people or even replying to the group, I got a phone call from a young man from the New York Post. And he told me that he had just gotten off the phone with Sheriff Conister, and that the sheriff had told him that I said something that I didn't say. It was not. I definitely didn't say it. And whenever he said that to me, I mean, I was sitting in my chair and I jumped up in my chair and I said, "Whoa!" I says, "Hold the fort here just a minute." I said, "You can call Sheriff Conister back and you can tell him that I said that if he said that, he's talking out his butt because his mouth don't know better." And he told me that he would call Mr. Conister back, and we hung up. He was, after I said that, he was in quite a hurry to get off the phone because I think that they were trying to release that article that night. I'm not sure, but whenever we hung up, I was spitting mad. I called the sheriff's department, tried to get in touch with Mr. Conister. He was gone. I got his email, and I emailed him, and I kind of spoke my mind, told him that it was bad enough that Carol was spreading her lies. I didn't need our sheriff's department misquoting things that I had said. And I told him, I said, "Respectfully request you get in touch with that young man ASAP and retract it." I didn't figure that I would hear back from him until the next day. Well, about 30 minutes later, it was about 9:30 at night, Mr. Conister called me back, and he apologized and said that he spoke out of turn, that it was not me that said that, it was somebody else. And he had spoken to the young man at New York Post. And that's whenever I decided, okay, people want to hear what I have to say, then let it come out of the horse's mouth and not somebody else's.
Right.
So
Is there something you want to elaborate on that article, or just wait till it comes out? I mean, is there something like you were obviously
it wasn't said. They pulled it. I did read
Okay.
the article. I did read it, and that particular thing was not said. So.
Okay, so that's good. Well, all right. Well,
I
speaking
thought
of,
it was kind of special that the sheriff would call me back that night. I mean,
it must have been important, or your email must have been really firm or stern. It
was
must have gotten his
polite.
attention.
It was polite, but it did get his attention. Yes.
It must have. Okay, so since we're talking about the New York Post, I want to read about this article, but I also want to make sure I have some questions that I wrote down so I wouldn't forget. But yeah, so I want to talk about this newspaper article real quick, and then I want to ask you a couple of questions. Actually, yeah. All right. So let me read this article to you. It's not very long. It's pretty short. Well, it's like 4 paragraphs, but they're short. So there's a newspaper article that came out, and it says Jack Donald Lewis, 59, was reported missing by his wife, Carol Ann, on August 19th. All right, so August 19th was a Tuesday. All right, so that's when she reported him missing. Is that right? Did she report him missing on Tuesday?
I believe so. I believe.
Okay.
Once we talked, you had to wait. Yeah.
I think so, because I think that's it. Here it says August 19th, so that's Tuesday. And then it says Jack Lewis garnered headlines 2 years ago over his fight with the state to keep 2 pet leopards. And then it says Carol Ann Lewis told deputies her husband left their house, that names the address on Easy Street, the night before, and that she has not seen or heard from him since. And then they talk about the van that was found. So what stands out to me in this article, I'll read it again. It says Carol Ann Lewis told deputies her husband left the house the night before. All right, so she reported him missing on Tuesday, that basically he was missing Monday. But on Tuesday, she tells the deputies that he left the night before. So that would have been Sunday night. Now, in the documentary, she says he had to get up early Monday. Well, she said early on Monday. Do you know when she said the last time it was that he went missing?
Well, I guess you would have to figure out which time and which one that she said. At one point, she said that she didn't see him Saturday. The next time that she said he was pouting and didn't go to church with her on Sunday. The next time she says that the last time she spoke to him, he was standing at their bedroom door. So I don't know which one to tell you.
You're not helping me at all, Ann.
Sorry.
Okay. All right. So it could have been Sunday night. It could have been Saturday. Okay. So there's 4 different stories right there, supposedly that's from her. And the documentary was early Monday, but I can't recall in the documentary if she said she actually saw him that morning or not, but it really doesn't matter to me if she did or not, because I have a newspaper article here where it says she told deputies he left the night before. Now, I don't know if that's in the report or not. Have you ever seen the actual police report?
No.
Okay. Do you know who was with her when that was filed?
As in who?
Like physically, like when Carol filed the missing persons report and the sheriff's department came out to take the report, were you there, or do you know if anyone was with her?
I don't.
Okay.
Would have been the sheriff's department. We were located in the city, so if it had been at the office, it would have been TPD.
Okay.
Of the sheriff's department. So I don't recall.
All right. It would have been the deputies so it would have been with the police department. And do you know, have you heard if Kenny and Carol were there together when he was reported missing?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't
And
know.
you weren't there, so you don't know. Hey, while we're talking about that, no, let's not. Let me ask you about this Sunday night thing. If he left Sunday night, well, did you see my video when I did the interview with the lady who said that her husband came home with Dawn's blue van and it had guns in it? Have you seen that?
I did.
Okay. All right. So all right. Dawn had a blue van, right?
Yes, he did. That was the one that he drove around most of the time.
Okay. That was also the one that I read was recovered. It was a 1989 Dodge blue van that was recovered at the airport. Do you know if that was the one that was at the airport that was recovered?
I didn't physically see it after they recovered it. So
okay. Well, I read that it was a blue van. Now in the documentary it shows a white van, but you don't recall him ever having a white van, do you?
Not at the time. I mean, you have to understand Don bought and sold and I mean he might have bought a car today and sold it next week and he might have drove it for 6 months. So
right. Okay.
Can I say he never had a white van? No. At the time he did not have one. He had the blue van.
During that time he had a blue van. Okay, so he has the blue van Kenny shows up with the blue van at home Sunday evening. It's full of guns. His ex-wife helps him unload all these guns. Now, the van is recovered at the airport. If Don left early Monday morning, do you know what time early would be? Like, here, I have diary entries that I've read where Carol talks about her and Don are feeding the cats at like 6:30 in the morning. Like at 6:30, they're already feeding cats, doing this and that. So I don't know what time they normally get up, but do you know what time early would be to Don?
The plans for that morning would have been, if he did in fact make that statement, the plans for that morning was there was a box truck filled with clothes and toys and baby carriages. I think there were baby carriages and baby strollers and things that he had bought at garage sales and probably flea markets. The box truck, along with 3 cars, were supposed to go to Miami and be loaded on a barge and exported to Costa Rica. So if you figure that it is 5 hours from, roughly 5 hours from Tampa to Miami, to drive down there, and they had to be there by 8 o'clock. So I would say 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning at the
Okay.
latest for them to get down there in time to put the stuff on the barge.
Okay, so early would be 2 or 3 in the morning. That's kind of what I was thinking in my head, because, like, you know, like we have animals here where we live, and my wife gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning to, feed like donkeys, goats, whatever it is. If she got up at 5, I mean, her and I discussed this last night. She said 5 o'clock would be early, and probably 3 or 4 would be early. So 2:30 or 3 would be early. Okay. So the blue van was recovered at the airport, which means supposedly he drove that van to the airport. I mean, that's the story.
Supposedly, however, the seat, Dom was only like 5'7". He wasn't a tall man. From what I can understand, from whenever I was talking to one of the detectives way back, I think it was Detective Lingo, when they found the van, the seat, the driver's seat was pushed all the way back. So somebody taller than Don had to have been the one that took that van there. And Don was like my husband. Yeah, I get in my husband's truck and I don't move the seat.
Right.
I mean, we're lucky now. You have these push buttons and you can have you can set your seats to where my setting and his setting, and so we're lucky now. But you didn't move Don's seat.
Right. Yeah. I if I get into a different vehicle, I don't mess with the seat. Yeah, I don't know who could have driven that vehicle, but I mean, I know that, Carol's talked about Dawn flying to Costa Rica or flying somewhere or whatever it is, but that van, that van was driven. All right, there's only one blue van, right? There wasn't any more than one that you know of?
Not that I know of, no.
Okay. That blue van was driven Sunday night by Kenny Farr. And that van was parked at, I'm going to put this out there, that van was parked at 10009 Hines Street all night Sunday night until the next morning. Now, the next morning, the sunrise was at 7:02 a.m. But he left before sunrise, but not long before sunrise. So I'm going to say around, 6 o'clock or a little bit earlier than 6 is what I'm told. But if Don got up early early Monday morning at 2:30 or 3 and left, there's no way that he could have driven that blue van because he didn't have access to the van because the van was parked over on Hines Street. I mean, right? I mean, if he left at 2:30 or 3, he wouldn't have been able to drive that van. He wouldn't have been the last one in it.
Correct. But this is, I mean, today is the first I've heard of where the van was all weekend long. I didn't know that. I guess I didn't, whenever I watched his ex-wife's video, I mean, I guess I didn't put the timeline together and what he was actually driving.